Good evening. It's a strange time to see me on making one of these vlogs. It's midnight, and just almost midnight, and Saturday. I think it's like May 16th or 17th, and this is the start of a new playlist, I suppose you could call it in YouTube terms, but it's also the beginning of a new project, a new line of discussion, a new discourse, and something I want to work on with you guys. Now, it's called Project Nebulous, and I'll explain to you in a minute, but essentially, I want your comments to add to this conversation. And it's to do with high strangeness and recent events that have happened in the world that have shown that reality is far more flexible and less solid than it had been in the past, certainly in all of my life. Now, since I was quite young, about 10, I've always been looking to develop my model of the universe, and a big part of this was things like the Fortean or paranormal or the mysteries of life. And I always had an instinctual notion that these things were just as important as education and existence and day-to-day living as a citizen, as a person in this world. And such things brought with them complications that were more questions would be answered. Things would never, ever fully pan out. And I used everything from art to writing to chaos magic to megaliths to everything, even astronomy, tarot, the lot, to try and make sense of this model of the universe, which my consciousness was attempting to establish, is so like a roadmap. Now, that's why I've called these series of videos, and this is what this channel, Open Source Occult TV, will be from this point on for the time being. These Project Nebulous videos, and nebulous meaning something that's there but misty. It's not quite visible. It's hazy. It's miasmic without the smell, but it's there's something there in the mist. There's something there in the twilight. There's something there that can be revealed, should be revealed. It's there. And why I'm starting a series of videos now, excuse me, the allergies are driving me mad. Why I'm starting a series of videos now is I think finally I'm starting to see forms developing. And I think many of us are as well. Reality is very strange in recent times. Not just the whole, like we're living in the whole Corona COVID-19 lockdown. Having said that, it's like living in a sci-fi movie. It's a very strange thing. And here we are living in an episode of Doctor Who. We're all locked down. We can't move in most countries. And I've been here. I can't go any more than 5 kilometers. And so it allows you to think. It allows you to and right in the middle of all this, the CIA, Pentagon announces and shows remarkable footage that UFOs are real. And the amazing thing about that was the public didn't care. And I find that remarkable. Now, I want to backtrack the story. Now, anyone who's been following me for a while knows I don't buy in to the whole alien spacemen from other planets coming here on mechanical spaceships. Now, I'm not saying that's not the case. I'm just saying I've seen absolutely no proof of it. I've also seen no proof of ancient aliens, but this is still an important thing as well. Everything was built that we say that they couldn't be built by humans in the past was built by an advanced civilizations of humans in an ancient, very ancient past. We're talking about 20,000 years ago, more, maybe back first a million, that did this. And that's the answer to that. It wasn't spacemen helping Egyptians, there was human beings had an advanced civilization millennia and millennia and millennia ago. So this ties in my thing with megaliths as well. Now, which I've travelled extensively and studied extensively. At the same time, there was always this thing, like, I totally got why people felt there was a magical or a paranormal or an extraterrestrial interdimensional element to megalithic sites. They have that vibe about them. And, visiting that Stargate in Andhra in Sri Lanka was a pivotal moment in that experience for me. But I also know this whole thing of space aliens and ancient astronauts and visitors from other planets in mechanical spaceships. It's a very lazy surface level assumption, and it basically flies in the face of all previous mythologies and attitudes towards non-human beings in this world and in this universe. We have an assumption that the ancients used to look at the stars in the night sky and knew they were distant stars with planets around them. They didn't know that. They were just lights in the sky. It's only you putting your 20th century knowledge onto them back. To them, they were just lights in the sky. But they had significance, of course. There was a star lore in different cultures. But at the same time, too, we have the Dogon in Western Africa, who, it's a remarkable story in itself. It's almost like they went to the planet Sirius, or went to the star Sirius and saw the binary star. Or they're an extremely ancient people that carry the knowledge from this ancient civilization back with them and somehow survived it. Now that's why it's important that I want your comments on these videos, and I want discussion, because we need to all build our own individual model of this stuff. Now, I saw my first UFO about 6 years ago now, 5-6 years ago, and I was loading up the car, the previous car I had, at work, putting stuff in it, and I saw this egg-shaped object that was like a fuzzy ball, no, a fuzzy oval, move slowly over Sligo Bay, way too slow to keep an airplane in the air, and it was also like it was a plasma. It felt like it was an animal, like it was alive, and then it just suddenly went out, just gone, it vanished. And so that was like, all my life I'd been waiting to see a UFO, and I finally saw one. And the impression I got was I was looking at a living thing, not a machine. And the sensation, the insight. Now, to where the story really begins is where reality began to fail. Now, one of the reasons we are in this five-sense reality and we're subject to it is because the subatomic particles are so densely packed that it's very difficult for us to alter reality. And this is where things like magic comes in, using extreme states and ultimate attenuation of the human nervous system and concentration in order to affect reality in a way according to a desired will. But this had never happened in my lifetime on a mass level until 2015, 2016, when this whole emergence of this Pepe Kek thing happened on 4chan. And it's still, we take the story for granted now, but it was remarkable. Literally, the combination of chaos magic, the resurrection of an ancient Egyptian god, it affecting the election of an American president who's now actually at the moment dismantling the Federal Reserve, something we've all wanted for decades, an illegal operation essentially, basically a banking mafia. The destruction of the last great neocon globalist politician, Hillary Clinton, and all because of a frog cartoon, of a cartoon, and synchronicities of true chaos and discordia, which took place on this 4chan site, which was very heavily based on things like comedy and satire and taking the piss and stuff like that. And they rolled with it and they got caught up in it. And these computer nerds, through the recognition of, and these gaming kiddos, we're going to call whatever they call themselves, gamers, through the recognition that they knew what they were doing and the acknowledgement of synchronicity. And I said in the other day how synchronicity is the quantifier of magical happenings. Ran with it, and they got Donald Trump elected as president of the United States against all the odds. Against they basically took the global elite in terms of the neocons down, and it was just remarkable. And it was an absolute mass act of chaos magic that came to fruition. Then after this, we have the Uma, the strange object that we're told turned in space because of gas outing. It turned at a right angle. It didn't spin. It didn't turn around. It changed the course deliberately. But what that is, we don't know. And then I made a video as my own test of chaos magic. I was on this channel, and I did it quite differently. I put music on it and built it up as a dramatic thing. And then the following weekend, Ireland had its biggest UFO flaps along this coast in years. So it had confirmed to me that the subatomic fabric was malleable at the moment, that we could achieve and do things that were not open for maybe since the Renaissance, in terms of artists having visions and things like this, and then bringing them into fruition and then bringing them into manifestation according to what we want. And now we have the lockdown, and we have the CIA and through the Pentagon showing us remarkable footage of UFOs, and people going, meh. Now that to me is fascinating. At the same time, they seem to be conducting this global experiment. Now, do you remember the film Close Encounters of the Third Kind that was made by Steven Spielberg back in the 70s? Go watch that again. It's good until the spaceships arrive at the end. Then it becomes this horrible American schmaltz thing, like where science fiction changed in the late 70s. It went from being like idealistic American to sort of like nihilistic European when films like Alien came along. And that film is very interesting. It's basically, the Richard Dreyfuss and other people have these visions of this Devil's Tower mountain in Wyoming, and it comes to them slowly during the course of the film, in the guise of kind of like a nervous breakdown. And you know what they say, that the shaman swims in the ocean where the lunatic drowns. This whatever that expression is, similar to that. And eventually they go to a Devil's Tower. But how the U.S. government and military hide the carry on of encountering the aliens at Devil's Tower is they pretend there was a poison that gases everybody, and sure enough, they were all wearing masks at the same. This is like amazing when you think about we're all really wearing masks now, afraid of COVID-19. In the film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, they're all wearing masks around Devil Tower to distract from alien contact from what it doesn't show them coming from outer space. They sort of appear out of clouds when you watch the movie. And then you have even the thing of the little boy is abducted, and that's very much going back to fairy folklore, the changeling and the little boy is being abducted. If you've seen my Lovecraft documentary, Liber Providence, my theory is that the reason why Lovecraft well, it's not a theory, they used to do that. In Victorian times, they used to dress for people from Celtic backgrounds, used to dress little boys as little girls, so little boys were abducted. And then we have on the macro level, we have this Desmond is amazing, who's almost like is like a collective unconscious element of a little boy as a drag queen. It's so strange and odd. But if you look at that film now, it's what's happening in that film is happening now. Everyone wearing a mask because the government have told them there's a poison in the air, and it's a cover story to encounter aliens, and then alien visitation has happened. And then in this now, or it's been UFOs, I should say, have been confirmed, and nowadays So in this Nebulous project, what I'm seeing is, along with this, you see, it's a combination of using this Fortean news, things like the UFO leaks, well, not leaks, actual press conferences, the strangeness of the world, coupled with things like synchronicity and Fortean events and magic and megaliths, and it all ties up together. It is all that's what the Nebulous thing is. I know there's something about all these individual points that are somehow part of the eventual, or hopefully appearing, manifesting model of the universe. They're all, to me, they all seem to be intrinsically connected, yet the threads are not solid, and the connections don't seem particularly integrated. But at the same time, too, you feel there's something to this. You feel it. And we have like, now they're telling us that they're getting these perfectly rhythmic sounds coming from other galaxies. They're constantly talking about aliens non-stop. They're, the most remarkable one as well. Like, it's like Hollywood movies regarding science fiction becoming a form of chaos magic and bringing things into reality. A good one would be, okay, Arthur C. Clarke's 2001. The final scene of that is the computer saying, "All these worlds are yours except Europa." Now, it recently came out that Europa is where they believe the best chance of intelligent, complex intelligent life in the solar system probably exists in the oceans beneath the icy surface. And they said it's probably octopus-like. And this then ties in with the whole thing with the octopuses and the experimentation I did with the chaos paganism concept, that I said everybody's to think about octopuses, and suddenly octopuses were everywhere. And the concept of them being an alien species. And, they're finding asteroids now, or sorry, meteorites they found now would have water particles in them. They're showing that the whole thing is we are probably seeded from space. Now, it's quite likely that octopuses are an alien species. They're like nothing else on this planet, genetically, etc., and so on. And it's quite probable that their DNA, or even the eggs themselves, came on a meteorite. And that would have been the spaceship. So we're now getting out of this nebulous miasma. We're starting to see something clearly. Yes, ancient aliens did come to the Earth. They were octopuses. And their spaceships, they did come in spaceships, and they were meteorites. Now suddenly it's not so wild after all. And then it becomes wild again when you think of like Lovecraft and his connection of both human technology, space age technology, and developing engineering and science in tandem with these conscious forms from outer space, connected to ancient gods under the sea, connected to the Doe god and human beings and these hybrid merfolk that have always been part of our existence, our folklore. This idea of the land beyond the sea, Tir na Nog, High Brazil, etc. And even to make the Europa thing more amazing is that it ties in with things like the mountains, the mountains of madness in the other Lovecraft story. And then they're telling us that this week they released the thing, some other thing. They said that it's coming out so rapidly at the moment. It's so bizarre, saying that the universe seems to have a mind. Well, that's, to a pagan that's not that rare. But the way they describe it is also like Azathoth in the Lovecraftian mythos. The almighty daemon at the center of all chaos, and the interdimensional almighty daemon at the center of chaos. It's just, and then we don't know what the old ones were like. There's so many things not described, but in fleeting terms, and it's almost like Lovecraft gives you a lexicon I'm not saying it's the absolute truth or even the truth, but I'll tell you, things have happened to me in recent times that I thought were strange. And I might have spoken this before, but when I did my first TV appearance, it was on Ian R. Crane's On the Edge show in Milton Keynes in the TV studio there in England. It was 2011, I think. And afterwards, we went to a pub in Milton Keynes, and there was John Wedger. If you know John Wedger, you know John from, he's like a former London policeman, quite well-known man now, who has blown the whistle and all this kind of like crazy carry-on that goes on, protecting, the establishment and stuff like that. And I think I stayed in John's house that night. Yeah, I think I did. He brought me back to the airport that morning, and we had a few beers, and we were in the pub in Milton Keynes, and John's friend, who I can't remember his name now. I'm sorry, forgive me if you're watching this. We were chatting away, and we were talking about psychopaths, because I've just written puzzling people, and John had said to me and the other guy, Ian, "Do you think they're demons?" And I said, "Well, I think they are. I think they are demons," or something like that. See, I was trying to stay as mainstream in terms of delivering the message as possible, so I'd get the work out there to help people. And I didn't want to jump in with the supernatural stuff too soon, but it actually is all over puzzling people if you read it, as like as allegory, and even as illustrations and things like that. And John's friend said to me, "Look over there. This is a really strange guy over there." And there was a man dressed in a pinstriped suit, wearing a bowler hat, like Jonathan Steed in the Avengers. Was the name of the show? The one that had whatever that name of that TV show was in the 60s. And a bowler hat, a brolly, like an old-fashioned umbrella, and a pinstripe suit. And he was looking at us like this. He didn't buy any drinks or anything. He just stood there looking at us like this. And now looking back on that now, I think that was a man in black incident. And so many people, like, that was my first foray into the semi-big time. And it's immediately followed by a Men in Black experience. That's exactly what... And then we looked around at one point and he'd vanished completely. And we were talking about that, like I wish I could remember the chap's name. But it was really weird. I've even drawn a picture of him somewhere in a book. And I kind of put it at the back of my head, but I never stopped thinking about it and the significance of it happening that night. And then you say to yourself, "It's coming from MI5 or something." But it wasn't. His appearance was just like how they described the Men in Black thing. They're not quite plausible. It's almost like they're trying to fit in, but they can't quite do it. And whatever a Man in Black is, I know Hollywood has tried to make out. It's not. It comes from the same fairy folklore and things like that. And I'm now starting to see that there has been a tangent, or should we say a nebulous form, starting to emerge from this mist. And it's almost like that I needed this lockdown to do it. I've had incredible dreams. I've had insights that I started remembering things I'd forgotten. Like that, well, or not forgotten them, but they started to take on new significance. And I think we're actually, if we can manage this properly, not only can we solve tremendous mysteries for ourselves, and well, we'll never fully solve anything, and maybe that's not the point, but I do think we're on the cusp of something incredibly powerful. And one of the reasons I wanted to go to Easter Island was not to only do a film on my theories around the Moai and stuff like that, which I still will do. It was also the nearest I would get to where the fictional, quote unquote, location of Cthulhu is in the southern pole of inaccessibility, about 1,000 miles southwest of Easter Island, heading towards Antarctica. It's the most remote place on Earth. If you're on a boat there, you're closer to people on the International Space Station than you are to humans anywhere else on the planet. And it's where they also crash all the satellites safely. So it's almost like they're sacrificing these burnt offerings to Cthulhu. At the same time, too, you read my book, The Sorcery. Was it sorcery? Yeah, it was sorcery. The bloop, that strange sound that appeared that was picked up by the oceanographic surveys in that area, right exactly where it was. Now, they said it was an undersea sea earthquake, but it wasn't. It was just, they just said that. And it's almost like I wanted to, I had an urge to stand on that water, stand on that sea, and stare out at, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to go. Now that's been taken from me now, but it was the drive was like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I wanted to get there for that reason, to see, to feel, or to get insights, because all across that Pacific region, there are numerous islands that have strange statues and carvings on them, and they're This is how did Lovecraft know about that? That octopuses were so? They didn't know. Something told him. Something told him, and it ties in with like Michael Moorcock and all kinds of things. Like I was watching. I stumbled upon a magazine the other day, and it had an article in it by the British Interplanetary Society, and this were fellas and women in England and back in the 60s and 70s who developed space projects. And you look at it now, and back in the 70s, they were talking about, late 70s, talking about an interstellar spacecraft that could go to Barnard Star, which would be like one of the easier stars to get to from here. And but he said the spaceship would have to be built in Jupiter orbit. Now, we haven't even gone back to the moon. Because, there's lots of conspiracies that no one went to the moon. I believe they did go to the moon. But I believe that the real thing was that something happens to human beings on a psychedelic level, on a psychic or spiritual level, if they go too long outside space, the Earth, into deep space. And that's really what happened. That's the real reason we don't go into deep space anymore, because it's so fucking strange. What's out there is just not human beings. It's just like the Call of Cthulhu. We were not meant to travel far. I truly believe that with all my heart. And so we're stuck here, and we can only send out robots and probes like Voyager and Mariner and all those other ones, and Cassini and so on. But the universe tends to evolve according to our notions of it, as does reality. Now, if we can do this, and we're living in a time where the subatomic particles are less, there's not as many, they're not as tight together, and reality is affectable, then surely a dialogue through this Project Nebulous that we're starting on this channel now, we can help resolve these things and probably do a kind of a 4chan Pepe Keck thing of our own, in our own different way, that we're all part of, that we notice the synchronicities, talk about it, find the articles, discuss the articles in the comments below this, and start to generate a dialogue that is something of a reality buster. And then I will make these videos, and I think we'll all make them all at night like this in the dark. Now, this would be like a heightened sense. This is, if you're sitting at home watching this on your screen and seeing just my face in the dark like this, it's more dramatic than seeing me in daylight. And I think that's a real help in terms of focusing the will and the energy and the psychic power of this discussion to a greater extent. I'm also doing it late at night because I wanted to go into your dreams. Not me, but I want this concept to flow into your dream world, because everyone is having remarkable dreams at the moment. Even the mainstream reports this, that everyone's having the strangest remarkable dreams. Well, let's go in there. Let's become psychonauts. Let's become somnauts, and go into the dream world and find new things in there. Let's make life magical. Let's make life amazing. Let's make reality a ball of clay we can play with and do things to bring meaning to our existence, that we're not just here as husks of meat that put food in here and send out waste the other end. If you haven't noticed that things have become remarkable and magical in the last few years, well, you're probably not going to appreciate these videos, but I know many of you have. You know you're living in remarkable times. And so, in closing, let this be a portal, a stargate, that all of us on this channel can open together in order to resolve forms from the nebulous mysteries that are all connected together. Because this is it. This could be what we've all been looking for all our lives. The final ability for each one of us to build our own model of the universe that incorporates the fantastical as well as the material. Good night, and I will see you in the world of dreams.